Well, basically, this is, sorry, my cold. This is the scenario as it stands. When I started taking down some of this partition, you'll note the amount of timber that was used in the previous photos. They were crossing here and they were coming disturbingly close to the fire itself. So anyway, I'll be ripping out all timber here anyway, so that'll just make me sleep a little better at night. But what I did discover was this pipe here, and it's a soil pipe that's basically, obviously, it was very comfortable for the builder. I now know why they made this fireplace so wide, because I couldn't figure out. It was obviously because to get that pipe in there, sorry, my code, and to make things look good, like if they had just left that partition, we'll say what, 500 wide there, and they put this in close, it wouldn't look very pleasing. So they obviously done the same thing on the other side just to make it look visually pleasing. So this, hence why we have this massive fireplace. So my initial intentions were to actually bring these in closer, as close as possible at least, and just gain that extra bit of room, because the fireplace, I thought, it's just a bit too big. And but this pipe has obviously thrown a spanner in that works. So I was cussing initially when I discovered this pipe, and I was, that's kind of scuppered my plans. But then as you go on, suddenly light bulb goes off, and I realize, okay, well, the fireplace stays the size it stays, that it has to remain very much the way it is, but I realize that I have a place to actually drain my gravity system from, because as I explained in the drawing previously, there has to be a vent pipe, and it has to obviously be able to drain away somewhere. So the reason I was going to put a vent pipe, I was going to put all my circulation here, and I was going to put a vent pipe and a feed pipe through here, up a wall, through the floor above me and up into the attic, for that reason. But since this pipe is here now, I don't think I have to do it. I can actually put a feed tank here, just build a little platform, put a feed tank here, which feeds down, as per my drawing, feeds down into this side of the boiler. I was drilling them holes there yesterday. Then my flow comes out of this side up here, and I have to buy or purchase a heat exchanger. And I was looking at one on the internet there earlier, and the price I got, but I'm not familiar with the brand, the price I got is 200 yo-yos. And so basically my feed comes up here, then I have a T, goes into the circulation pump, then it's forced through a plate exchanger, and once it'll be up around here, and once it goes through the plate exchanger, it's going to be cold, so it's going to come up here, we'll just say at 70 or 80 degrees. There's going to be a T here. One is going to go up to a loop, to a vent pipe. The other one is, the pump is going to be drawing in this way. It'll go through the pump at 90 degrees, then is forced through a plate exchanger, and as it exits the plate exchanger, it's going to be at a lot lower temperature. So the dynamics of heating systems, hot water always wants to rise because it's less dense. Cold water always wants to come down because it's more dense. So you could, and I have fitted systems in the past that just initially rely on this whole convection cycle for circulation. But considering the kind of, I'm expecting to get about up to 20 kilowatts out of this boiler here. So the problem is it takes a long time for, it's slow, let me put it that way. And when you're dealing with these systems, it's better just to stick a circulation pump in it and get that water flowing, because this is where you get all the noises in your system when water starts bubbling up there and blah blah blah. But anyway, so it goes through a plate exchanger here, and then I have another separate flow and return, and it changes from a gravity system at the pressure plate to a pressurized system, and that's why I need the plate exchanger, because I have to link it to an existing pressurized system, and you obviously can't link a pressurized system to a gravity system, or it would just continually spew pressurized water out through a vent pipe. So basically you're amalgamating two systems via a heat exchanger, and so the pressurized flow and return will then come down here, and I'm just going to pull up this floor. I've decided I was initially going to go through the ceiling, but there's a number of issues with that, and in the past, like, it's quite difficult. First of all, you have to go pulling down you know, as you can imagine, ceiling boards, and then you have to drill holes at quite precise centers, and then you have to start feeding pipe through. And now you can get, like, there's barrier pipe, as we call it here, and it is like a for the want of it, it's a plastic orientated pipe that's good for up to 114 degrees Celsius. But the problems I've had in the past with that pipe was doing a system like this was, compared to copper, it expands and contracts tremendously. I mean, you can actually see the pipe, a cold section of pipe and a hot section of pipe. If to the trained eye, you can actually see it has expanded that little bit, but whereas copper, it's much less. So I've had the issue in the past where a gush, and this is exactly the kind of system that this is going to happen to, because modern boilers, we'll say gas boilers or oil boilers, are variable. So they can give out an infinite amount of heat that's being demanded. That might range from 2 kilowatts up to 20 or whatever the boiler is specified for. So if there's only demand for 2.5 kilowatts, that's what it will go to. So, and it will increase gradually if more demand is called for, or decrease whatever the system is calling for. So you basically, it's not a big problem with a modern gas or oil boiler, but in a system like this, a solid fuel, it is, because what happens here is you light a fire, takes it maybe 20 minutes after the fire starts roaring to boil that to a certain degree. I am going to have a pipe thermostat here, so once the degree hits the pipe thermostat, that triggers the circulation pump. Then the circulation starts, and it also has to trigger a second pump, because remember, we need to be able to pump the pressurized system also. So it triggers 2 pumps. So next minute you have a system that was stagnant and at least room temperature before, now suddenly finds itself dealing with 70-degree water gushing through here. And that is, you know, obviously this is where you start to hear noises and creaks, and really in some houses, like, it hasn't been unknown, and a lot of people have complained, you know, about issues like this. Like, you're sitting in this room, and you're watching television or meditating maybe, and suddenly the thermostat, this heats up, thermostat triggers the circulation pumps, and next minute hot water starts running through the systems over you, and next all you hear is like this, and like it literally sometimes it feels like you're on some ship that's going down, like it's like A Night to Remember or something. Like, I mean, the whole rig, you're like, it sounds like there's something structurally wrong with the house, and it can, I've often in the past, some people find it quite alarming. They lose confidence, they think the ceiling's coming in or something, but so for that reason I want to try to avoid that, because if I was going up there I would use the barrier pipe, because it's easier to feed through the choice. It comes in coils rather than 5.5 meter lengths. And also I'm going to spec it in inch or 28 mil in European money, and because I want the least amount of resistance as possible, and an inch of 5.5 meters of inch copper here today, you're looking at about 45-50 yo-yos, whereas 6 meters of inch barrier pipe costs about 22-25 maybe, so it's nearly half price. So obviously that helps also. So and another issue is I'm afraid plumbing can become, of all the trades within the construction industry, maybe wiring might fall into this category as well. I mean, bricklaying is relatively straightforward compared to this. Now, I know there are some very sophisticated aspects about bricklaying, and that's specialized areas. I'm not talking about that. But plumbing in general is, how would I put this? It's very much open to philosophy, maybe. There is like everything, and I find this strangely will just diverge slightly. In politics, I find this the very same. You have a theory on something, you try to explain your theory, you know, to a second party or indeed a third party, and somewhere along the line, you know, the toing and froing with people asking you questions, you cross from maths and proven science and into philosophy, what is open to individual interpretation, and heating systems are notoriously open to individual interpretation, and unfortunately for a lot of people, the customers' philosophy may sometimes collide with the plumber's philosophy, and I think we all know, we've probably all had one of those scenarios in the past. But so plumbing is notoriously open to personal philosophy, and my personal philosophy is, as I've explained to you earlier, hot water wants to go up, cold water wants to come down. It's actually quite hard for a pump to pump hot water down. It's easier for it to pump it upwards, for the reasons I explained before. But the importance, I think, of getting heat lower in the house, I think, overrides that. So I think get it down, get the heat down as low as you can. That's my philosophy. So rather than heat going up here, remember, heat is only going to rise, probably about 5 or 10% of the heat of these pipes is going to enter this room, and the other 90% is going to go to the room above. Now I want to follow that philosophy, except I want that 90% to come up to the ground floor, not the first floor. So that's my philosophy. So it heats this room, and then it radiates and conveys up through the next floor. So it's heating 2 rooms rather than 1. That's my philosophy. So get it down, get the heating down. This, to my knowledge, is why underfloor heating is so effective, because you're getting massive amounts of latent energy low down. And it mightn't seem much to you when you walk in the door of a house that has underfloor heating. It mightn't seem much to you that nothing's that hot, but believe me, the amount of kilowatts over a given amount of time that has gone into creating that amount of heat, I gotta say, if you were to burn that in that fire for 2 minutes, it would be quite a show, I gotta tell you. So it can be very deceiving. Underfloor heating relies on kilowatts, average amounts of kilowatts over a long period of time, where solid fuel fires rely on large amounts of kilowatts over a small period of time. So I believe, anyway, my own philosophy is get it down, get the heat, get that hot water down, and it's going to have to rise. So if you have to expend, the pumps we're using are relatively low powered. They're in about, at max, 100 watts. So they burn about, well, the old incandescent light bulbs. They burn about the same amount of energy as you know, your typical light bulb. So you have to remember that also, and there's going to be 2 of them, so it's going to be 2 light bulbs. But these are not on obviously all the time. They only come on when you actually light a fire. But you also have to remember something else. You see, this is where it starts to get, and I am going to go slightly into this because I think it's relevant. This is a good example of where I've had philosophical arguments with heating engineers and electricians to some degree, because they would say, look at this, the system I'm designing is inefficient, because they're saying you're using 2 pumps, first of all, you know, to push water down, you know, so there's 200 watts of electricity that you're using to save on fuel. And my take on it is that is true. I agree 100% with everything you're saying. But consider that a watt itself is a measure of heat. So 100 watts of electricity being pumped into that circulation pump is going to dissipate as heat. So I could just as easily have a 100-watt heater there, but in a pump's case, that's what it gives out. It gives out 100 watts of heat, but it also has the added advantage that it circulates my already boiled water. And considering that the purpose of lighting a fire is for heat, well then, yes, it is true, it may be arguably electrically inefficient, that there may be a case for that. However, I am recuperating the 100 watts per pump of heat for every pump that I'm using, and we're looking for heat. That's what we're looking for. So I get 2 products out of that pump. I get to circulate my hot water, I get to force hot water down underneath my feet, which is where we want it. We don't want it up there, we want it down here. And I recuperate the 100 watts of heat from that. So I think myself that's a reasonable, I'm more than happy to make that concession. But that's what I'm saying, where it starts to get philosophical. There are reputable heat engineers that will throw out that what would you call that in scientific terms? Theorem or hypothesis. Sorry, my accent betrays me. You know, there are many reputable heating engineers that will dismiss that, and likewise electrical engineers. But I've got to say that's the system I stand by. Get that heat down, even if you have to burn that extra bit of electricity. But everybody to their own. That's considering I'm fitting this system. This is the system I want. But you can understand that customers may disagree with that. You know, my mate's a cousin. You know, it's just part of the industry. My boyfriend's brother's a plumber. You constantly get this all the time. It's never them. It's always my second cousin, my mate, my sister's half cousin's brother knows a plumber that said, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, you've got to be quite firm with the customer. You're paying me to install a system. If you don't trust me to install my ability to install the system, then get your half sisters, friends, cousins, mate who knows a plumber to come and fit the system. You put your deposit down, you paid me money, you put up, you shut up. You don't say halfway through ordering a car, oh actually, I want a Ford Mondeo with black metallic paint, leather seats, a 2-litre diesel engine. You don't say halfway through delivery time that, well actually my brother's mate said that that the Nissan Primera was good. If that's your case, then go and buy a Nissan Primera, but you purchased the Ford, and likewise you purchased my skills. But there's just an instant of how philosophical it can get and how complicated life can get in general. So this is why I find this stuff fascinating, because it's so directly linked to politics and many other aspects in our lives. Things should be simple. I mean, the majority votes, we're in a democracy, freedom should be, all these things in theory are simple, but in practice they become extremely complicated. And especially when you start adding on systems like this, which I'm about to, heat plate exchangers and so on. The very fact that I'm using a plate exchanger necessitates the fact for a second pump, and it has knock-on effects for a lot of other things in the system. So you can't just, like everything in life, you just can't change one small aspect. Say, yeah, I'll just do that, and it's going to have absolutely no effect on the rest of the system. You can't. And that's particularly true for existing systems. Whatever about fitting a brand new system and trying out a new idea. When you come to an existing system and try to link something completely new to it, it can come up with the most tremendous issues. So that's just experience telling me now. Anyway, so what I initially thought was going to be my downfall, this pipe standing right in my way, may in fact save me a tremendous amount of money, because now I don't have to go pulling down ceilings and everything to get vent pipes and feed pipes through the ceiling. Now I can do that all in this self-contained unit, and I can put my 2 pumps here, my plate exchanger, and I'm going to leave an access panel here so that I can service them 2 pumps and service all the mechanical components. So whereas before I was thinking, where do I put the circulation pump, and I was going to leave a hatch in the ceiling maybe in the next room or something, here I'll contain it all here in this unit, and I'll stick a vent down there, down low, and I'm going to stick a vent up here. So there's going to be quite a lot of just latent heat in that concrete, in these pipes, the pumps, the latent expansion tank there's going to be, so we just need some way, convection will take care of it, that the cool air will just come in and slowly bleed off into this room, which is exactly where we want it. I think that about does it. Just an update of the issue that I've come across, and I'm going to have to basically redesign the system as per the drawing I showed you earlier on. Now, people are going to ask the obvious question, well, why did you make a video and show me a drawing that you're not now going to use? And this is the exact purpose of the video. This is exactly why I'm doing it, because this, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, is how the world works. You have a plan, you paste it out on paper. That is good practice. That is genuinely a good practice. Sometimes it does, but the rule usually is you'll end up deviating quite a lot from that plan in the initial place. And that is what this video is about. That applies not only to plumbing, to the construction industry, but that applies to mankind, the world, politics, economics, sociology. That applies in absolute terms to the reality that we see around us. So that's why I've included that. Sorry, I'm being a little sarcastic now. I enjoy it. Anyway, I think everyone gets where I'm going. I'm not going to give you a perfectly engineered video with perfect descriptions. You're going to see the scenarios we come across, and I genuinely see something positive happen there. Is something tremendously beautiful happened, as far as, again, going back to philosophy. I came across a pipe, I thought it was literally going to defeat me. I was, oh my God, that pipe has really screwed me up. And now I'm like, wow, that pipe has saved me about $1,000 and a week's work. It has really helped me out. Yeah, good. And again, can we not just apply that? That is true also for the world around us. You come across scenarios in your life and you interpret them as negative things or obstacles or whatever, and then when you donkey on through, you realize that actually that helped me out. Yeah, so here we go. anyway, talk to you in the next video. Good luck.